Hi, I'm Christopher Stewart. Now, when people look at my resume, they always want to know, and they always ask about a couple of films. And it's always, how did you get into it? How were you able to even do that? And it's always difficult for me to try and explain these kinds of things publicly, not because I can't talk about them, but simply because I'm not entirely sure how to present the information. I mean, it's been over 30 years, guys. Nothing's secret, nothing's like classified or anything like that. I am part of the international program. Interpol does not hide. I am an Interpol officer. Because I work for Interpol, that opened the door to things that a lot of people don't normally get the chance to do. I got the wonderful honor of being able to work with Her Majesty's SAS. And in doing so, part of the training that I went through, they allowed me to work in stunts for the production of The Final Option. Now, once we would finish The Final Option, we also went over and were working on the James Bond films. So, this is the thing. Everyone always goes, James Bond, you were in like Octopussy, Never Say Never Again, For Your Eyes Only, and View to a Kill. How'd that go about? How did you even get into these? Well, with For Your Eyes Only, we started working on the stunt sequence for the mountain climbing sequences. And we did a little bit of extra work here and there. We're just kind of around the shots. An international incident happened on the set, which we in England have been keeping quiet for over 30 years. And it's not anything to be concerned about directly, but it did take place. There was an attempt on Princess Diana's life. And I had saved the Princess of Wales, and with the help of Roger Moore, we got her back to the UK. Both Roger and I were knighted for that. I received an international award, which I get a lot of flack anytime I mention any of my medals or awards, because people sit there and say, well, there doesn't really exist that award, it has to be this award. And it drives me nuts. It's like, just because you're an American and you read books doesn't mean you know everything. Okay? There are actually awards and medals that are given internationally to international spies. But as the common often saying is, spies get all of the glory and none of the credit. So, that's where I started into the James Bond work. Then I was called back to work with Octopussy. Never Say Never Again was a completely different story. I had met Sean Connery a long time ago in New York. We literally bumped into each other in a library. And I was in Japan and I was working with my sensei. And up comes Sean Connery and a director knocking on our door. And they had found out that my sensei owned a building, and they wanted to use the building for part of the shoot of Never Say Never Again. And Sean was like, I love this kid. I see him in New York. I'm in New York. He's in New York. I leave New York. I go to Japan. He's in Japan. Wherever I go, there he is. And we started a great friendship with that. And then I came on board with Never Say Never Again. Now, Never Say Never had a lot of problems, left and right. I mean, for one, they were having legal battles back and forth between the Bercoli Corporation and with Sean Connery and the people he was working with, and the director he got to do the film. And there was a whole to-do about all the legal battles and all the things, because he was Sean was literally independently doing a Bond production. And that's also why anytime you look at the James Bond collections, Never Say Never is generally not counted as a Bond film because it's not from Percoli Productions. But on top of all that craziness, there was an extreme problem because we had Kim Basinger on the team. And Kim was in the middle of a divorce with her, I think, first or second husband. And he was just absolutely impossible. He was on set all the time. He was sitting there telling her how bad she was and trying to make her redo shots and things of this nature. I mean, the literal reason why spouses aren't allowed on set by directors in most cases, kind of thing. And she was just going out of her mind and battling him with a divorce lawyer and everything. And when I came on board, I picked her up and I pulled her out of all of that and I started supporting her. And the more I started supporting her, the more the director wanted me around because I was bringing up her, I was bringing up the entire cast. And so he kept bringing me back as an extra here and an extra there. At one point they said something of like, well, if he could only do scuba. And I said, well, my friend from high school and my tutor in high school is a marine biologist. He can just show me how to do the underwater stuff. And so I brought John into the thing as an underwater expert. And he started working with me in scuba. And he started working with Kim in scuba. And he got us all working really well underwater. And we did a lot of the underwater sequences that way. In fact, John's actually one of the extras in the underwater sequences, which he doesn't claim credit for. And John's great. He's still swimming somewhere off in the middle of the Caribbean and just enjoying the fish and everything. And so once we finished doing the shooting of that, then because of how well I knew Roger Moore had called people and said, where's Chris? We could probably use him a little bit here and a little bit there. And at that point, Grace Jones had said, I just worked with him in Conan. And they said, great. And they pulled me over to do a doubling scene briefly for one of the marionette puppeteers so that I could take the punch and fall down kind of thing. And then that was pretty much it. I didn't do a lot in the Bond films. In most cases, you're just seeing like a second clip of me, like in, I think it's Octopussy, where I'm sitting on top of a ladder and they're going by me in the cars and it's just my face going, wow, you know, and the whole 9 yards. But, you know, that's the James Bond pictures. I loved working in the Bond films. I love working with actors who've played Bond. I've worked with Sean Connery. I've worked with Roger Moore. I worked with George Lazenby on a few productions in Italy and a production in China. I worked with him on, of course, Hussar Die in Italy, and I worked with him again in China in Hong Kong Hitman with Angela Mao. And he's a lot of fun to work with. He really is. He's very laid back. He's someone who's almost like constantly on a vacation. He's someone who literally would just be happy spending his entire life sitting there on the steering helm of a sailing boat and just going through oceans, you know, and he's just a fantastic individual. I got to meet Timothy Dalton on the set of Never Say Never. He was an extra in that, and he's always looked at me saying, the two extras from Bond, now I got to play Bond, now you get to play something better in Bond. So who knows, maybe at some point in the future somebody will say, hey, let's use him and bring him back into the Bond movie series. Had never met some of the later people that worked in Bond, but would love to at some point work with some of them. They're great actors. I did work with a lot of the villains from Bond over time. Of course, Richard's just absolutely incredible. My God, what an actor. But I'll go into him in another time. And there's just so much fun that we had with that. It's just difficult to start talking about that kind of thing, because how do you explain it, when you do some of these really crazy, wild things, and how do you sit down and actually explain it to people so that they can understand, they can relate to you. The final option, the funniest thing about the final option, there was a sequence where we were going through the rooms in the mansion, hotel, or whatever it was, and one of the cast members had a line of clearing second floor, and he throws a grenade into the room, which is absolutely hilarious. I mean, just the whole concept of clearing the room, throw a grenade, I mean, it's just absolutely silly. Well, we were in the middle of a production of a zombie movie with, I think it was Lucio Fulci, and there were a couple of people that had come on board as extras, and they were all in like clean suits. We hadn't even seen their faces and whatnot. We didn't even know who anybody was, and all I had been told is that a few of them had come over from England, and I said, that's cool. And we were in this one area in the film, and I said, clearing second floor, and threw a grenade. And the guy standing next to me just burst out laughing so hard that he couldn't even stand up straight. And Lucio Fulci's like, what's the joke? I wanted to let in on it. And he said, they just said my line for the final option. And I said, okay, jigs up. We know where you came from. And it's just, we've had so much fun with some of that stuff. And it's a great camaraderie, and it's a kind of secret camaraderie that can go on behind scenes in places. And someday I'm sure someone's going to walk up to me in a film where I'm going to star in it. They're going to be an extra, and they're going to say some line that will throw me back to the same kind of thing and whatnot, and go, that's cool too. But I loved working with Bond. I loved working with I actually really enjoyed working with Broccoli and the Broccoli Productions. I know I've heard so much about the problems with some of the shooting. Like, Roger Moore would constantly talk about how it was so difficult as an actor, because he'd have to go like this line, and then he'd have to wait like 6 hours, and then they'd get together, redo the shot, and he could say the next part of the line. So it literally ended up being something like, hi, I'm Bond. 6 hours later, James. 6 hours later, Bond. And, because they constantly had to go back into the shoot and add something or fix something, some stunt went wrong, and they just had to do these same single scenes like 100 times over. And it drove him a little bit nuts as an actor. But the end result is just absolutely fantastic, and when you think about stunts and you think about Bond, that's like stunt everything. And some of that is also where we brought in other people in other films. When I was working with John Hughes, we brought in some of the stunt people from Bond to choreography the stunts. And my whole stunt helicopter tackle scene over the London Bridge was designed by some of the stunt crew from James Bond Productions. And we had so much fun doing some of that stuff. We really did. And it's a joy. It really is. Even if all you're doing is standing there and being the back of your head being shot, because the main action's over there and you're just being a backdrop, just to sit there and say, I was in a Bond film, is just amazing. I mean, it's just the greatest joy of my life and my career. And I felt that way about several things. I mean, when you sit there and you watch movies for most of your life, and you can actually say, I was in James Bond, I was in a Godzilla film, I mean, this is the highlight of my life, And it doesn't matter if it didn't get awards, didn't get recognized. It doesn't matter to me if agents sit there and say this, that, or the other thing about it. It's some of the best memories of my life. And I really want to thank all of the people that allowed me the opportunity to be in James Bond films, the opportunity to hang from a helicopter in Biggles, the opportunity to go from a helicopter flying team in The Final Option in through a window and just having a blast. I mean, I really enjoyed working with so many of those people, and I'd love to work with them again. So thank you.